So I know we all enjoyed Waffle Truck this morning. Adam Terry is one of the founders of Waffle Truck, and he's here today. And your team, Adam, recently crisscrossed the country in a competition of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that competition.
Yeah, it was called the Great Food Truck Race. It aired on the Food Network, and we went from town to town selling waffles. It was a total blast. Total blast.
All along Route 66, I believe?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
We came in second place.
Second place.
But it was a lot of fun, and that was just 3 years ago I started Waffle Love, and to be able to make it on that show was just an incredible opportunity for us.
And it was a very close second place finish, as I understand. You were that close to winning the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a story in and of itself.
Sore spot, man. So too soon.
Now, I do have to say, I feel like in this instance I was slightly ahead of my time. A few years ago, back in 2010 when I was running for the Senate, we used to go on these long drives, and I'd talk to my team about ideas that I had. And one day we were on a long drive somewhere in southern Utah, and I came up with this idea. I said, you know what would be a fantastic business plan? You can order a pizza anywhere in America, and it just shows up, and you ought to be able to do the same thing with a waffle. You could have a waffle truck that could just deliver waffles. My team thought it was an absurd idea. That said it would never work. But who's right now? Don't you think I had a good point back then?
Yeah. So as a precursor, man, a precursor.
Why don't you tell us a little bit, first of all, just how you started your business, how you got the idea, and how you got it going?
Yeah, well, I used to be in the banking industry. I was a banker. I graduated in 2009. Banking wasn't the industry that I was trying to get into, but that was the year everyone was cutting their jobs. It was just a bad year for the economy. So I worked as a banker for 2 years. I was one of the top bankers, but then I just wasn't getting the traction I wanted, so I switched banks, and then I got fired 2 weeks later. So long story short, after I got fired, I decided that I wanted to pursue my passion, and which is creating awesome tasting stuff for people to eat in the form of a waffle truck, which is what we have now, Waffle Love, parked right outside. And I hope you guys like the waffles today, right? Did you like them?
Absolutely. Now, tell us, I assume there were some major challenges to overcome along the way as you got started. Why don't you tell us about one or two of those challenges and how you overcame them?
Well, there's a lot of challenges. I think the main thing was in our county where we were at in Utah County, there weren't laws and regulations that allowed for food trucks to even exist. And so when you're in that awkward place between like there isn't a law that specifically says this can't happen or that it can happen because there isn't a law for it because that hasn't happened before. So we were getting the cops called on us all the time, and really sometimes the cops would be like, well, there's nothing says you can't, but there's nothing that says you can either. So it's like it was so much up to personal discretion and lots of discouraging moments that would happen in between there. But it was exciting to be able to work with cities and get laws put in place and work with the county health department and get a program in place for food trucks to even exist. And I'm really proud of that. I'm proud that we were able to help change happen in some really meaningful ways, and I'm super grateful to have had Waffle Love be a success that it has. I think in any business that you go in, you're going to have challenges, and since I'm with Senator Mike Lee with the government, I would say the best thing that we could have would be just letting businesses just let the government get out of the way a little bit and let us do our thing, right? Let us get open. And I mean, it was a challenge to get open for me, just to hurdle all the regulation. But man, if some of that, if that was actually like an aid to me in some way, that would have been so much different, But here I am today, so maybe I have you to thank, right?
I'm sure that's not the case, but I will say it's alarming that you'd have the cops called on you. It's sad, first of all, that you'd have to face something wondering whether you could do something unless you first have permission from the government. Waffles are not exactly what you'd call a pernicious evil in society. I mean, they are addictive. Your waffles in particular are very addictive. And for that, I mean, maybe we should consider listing them on the controlled substances list for that reason. But short of something like that, doesn't it strike you as somewhat wrong that you should have to go play Mother May I to the government at the outset just for the right to do something as simple as sell waffles?
I could not agree more. I could not agree more. I wish it was more of a, instead of a door with a bunch of locks on it, I wish it was just like one of those pass-through doors. It's just like, if you just push on it, it's just going to open, you know? And it didn't require as much effort to get through, but that's where we're at. And I think the American dream is still so alive and breathing. There's still tons of people that want to start businesses and have those opportunities. And in Utah County alone, there's been 30 food trucks that have followed me into the food truck industry to try and seek some of that same success. And it's been really cool to see that. And it's like, but what it shows is that there's tons of people out there that are just ready. And given the opportunity, like if we could somehow find out a way to lower those taxes and regulations, it would just help things blossom and bloom in a way that would be astounding, I think.
Absolutely. And I assume as more people have entered that market, it's not as though you fear that. In some ways, it becomes synergistic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As there have been more food trucks, haven't you done better?
I think if you build a road, people are going to drive on it, and I think it's cool. You know, that's great.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Do you ever have wars between different food truck companies, flatten
No.
each other's tires, anything like that?
I don't think so. I think there's been a couple copycat waffle trucks that have been mad at me, but besides, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm happy. So whatever.
Fantastic. Well, and how could you not be happy making those waffles all the time? The final question I ask for you is, how do you do what you do, be in the line of work that you're in, yet you're not the least bit obese? How do you get around that? Are these low calorie, no calorie waffles?
Yeah, guys. There's no fat in these waffles at all. You know, no carbohydrates. No. You know, the French they eat very high calorie foods all the time. You just eat eat what you feel like. Be an intuitive eater. You know, don't eat more than you think you should, right? And you'll be fine.
That's right. For some of us, being an intuitive eater is more perilous than it is for others. If I follow my own intuition, that's not always right. Adam, thank you very much for being with us. Give him a big hand. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, we'd next like to welcome to the stage Utah's very own governor, the president of the National Governors Association, the Honorable Gary Herbert. Thank you very much. I first got to know Governor Herbert more than a decade ago when I was working with the Huntsman administration, when Governor Herbert was then Lieutenant Governor Herbert, and always enjoyed working with him back then, just as I do now. I found that he was a man who could always find a way to solve a problem. He could get people together, get them talking, get them to roll up their sleeves, and he had a way of disarming people so that they wanted to get together and work and talk things out. And that talent, which was already very apparent to all of us who knew him back then, has only blossomed and mushroomed ever since then. And so we're fortunate to have him as our governor. So, Governor, you're continuing Utah's tradition of leading the way in a lot of areas, including by serving as president of the NGA. How is your role expanding Utah's role nationally?
Well, thank you, Senator. I'm honored to be here with you, and I can just tell you that I've enjoyed working with the senator before he was a senator, and certainly while he's now leading our delegation here and doing some really important stuff back in Washington. But I can tell you, you know this as well as anybody, it's always an honor to be selected by your peers. And the fact that I have 49 other governors that say we want you to be our leader is humbling. It's an opportunity for Utah to lead in ways we have not had the opportunity before. And there certainly is a puzzlement out there amongst other states as far as why is Utah doing so well? And an opportunity for us to showcase. Again, I have the opportunity to travel the country and represent the National Governors Association and really show where states really are finding solutions to problems. It's unfortunate that I think too much we put the burden on your shoulders in Washington to say, you solved the problem, when the Founding Fathers, as you know, Senator, wanted that to be happening in the states. The states are the laboratories of democracy. They are the pilot programs. They're the ones that are actually finding solutions. And so it's an honor for me to be able to highlight that aspect and showcase the states and the solutions they're coming up with, and at the same time show that the state that's really leading the way in virtually every way is Utah.
Yeah, and it's interesting how, you know, Congress right now has an approval rating of ranges between 9 and 11%, which means that we're less popular than Fidel Castro is in America, and we're only slightly more popular than the influenza virus, which is gaining on us rapidly. And it's therefore ironic and it's counterintuitive, and in fact it defies common sense, that just as Congress becomes less and less popular, in part because the federal government ruins a lot of things that we undertake, a lot of people continue to push more and more priorities, more and more authority, more and more money to Washington, when it seems like most of the American people understand intuitively something you and I share in common, which is a love for federalism. And it's not just you and I that share that. It's James Madison. It's all the Founding Fathers. It's the Constitution itself prefers to have more power close to the people at the state and at the local level. So what are some of the ideas that you've been able to develop on federalism, particularly as you've interacted with your fellow governors?
Well, thank you. We all probably understand the importance of the government closest to the people reflects the will of the people. You get farther removed and there's a disconnect that happens. And what I've been able to share, and part of my initiative with the National Governors Association, is James Madison's view of the Constitution and the other Founding Fathers, and I reference one of your favorite Federalist papers, Federalist 45, which talks about the role of the states. And if you all recall from your history books, you know, we had the Articles of Confederation, we have the Miracle at Philadelphia, we developed this great Constitution. But the states at the time were very concerned about this new, stronger federal centralized government. George Washington was very much in support of that because he couldn't pay his troops. We had different commerce laws, and so there was some confusion out there amongst the 13 states. So James Madison said to the states not to worry, in essence, about this new, because the powers that we've delegated to this new central federal government are few and defined. We've got them in a box, few and defined. The powers that we've left to the states, on the other hand, are numerous and indefinite. And that's the way it was designed to be. It's not a secret. It's not just a fluke that states are finding solutions. That's the way it was designed to be. But here's the issue. This is a stunning statistic, Senator. Right now, I've had our Office of Management and Budget total up all the state budgets, all 50 states. We went from 13 to 50 today, and the total budget's $1.2 trillion. Not an insignificant number, but $1.2 trillion, and yet the budget that you have on a continuing resolution, where you're not debating the budget, and I know you know that as well as anybody.
Sorry about that.
That's being proposed by the President is $3.99 trillion today. So the amount of money being spent in Washington, D.C. is 3 times the amount of money being spent collectively in the 50 states. Whatever James Madison's vision was of what the balance was going to be between the states and the federal government is certainly out of balance today based on our spending and how we prioritize our issues, which is how we spend our money.
By the way, that figure, the comparison between the federal government's outlays and the combined outlays of the states and their political subdivisions used to always be flipped. Prior to the mid-1930s, the states and their political subdivisions always spent collectively more than the federal government. But since that New Deal era, since the FDR administration, it's been the constant trend that whether in peacetime or in wartime, the federal government has spent more, and that really is a problem. It's something that we've got to address, particularly because, as we say, it's not as though everything the federal government touches turns to gold.